And tonight we're talking about The Passion of Joan of Arc from 1928, directed by Carl Theodor Dreyer. And the recap synopsis here from Letterboxd.
Uh-oh.
An immortal screen classic that will live forever. A classic of the silent age, this film tells the story of the doomed but ultimately canonized 15th century teenage warrior. On trial for claiming she'd spoken to God, Jeanne d'Arc is subjected to inhumane treatment and scare tactics at the hands of church court officials. Initially bullied into changing her story, Jeanne eventually opts for what she sees as the truth. Her punishment, a famously brutal execution, earns her perpetual martyrdom. So RJ,
Yo,
I'd seen this movie before, and I watched it. I'm surprised I have not watched it since I've been keeping track of stuff. By a Word document that I then translated into Letterboxd when I discovered Letterboxd in 2013. So it'd been about 6 years since I watched the movie for the first time, and I didn't realize it had been that long because all I really remembered of this movie was watching it, going in blind, just kind of being like, I like this Carl Theodor Dreyer guy. He directed all these other Criterion movies that I've watched, and I really like them. I wonder what this one's like, even though, generally speaking, sometimes when you watch these 1920s silent movies, you're kind of like, I appreciate these movies more than I actually genuinely like them. And I remember being like, wow, that movie's amazing. This is one of the best movies I think I've ever seen, as far as an actual all-encompassing piece of film that exists. I can't even believe how good it is. And this was made in 1928. And so I was excited, I guess, to rewatch it. Not realizing it had been so long since I watched it last. This movie holds up pretty good. I feel the same way about this movie as I did the first time I watched it. I don't know, RJ. I'm going to throw it to you. What did you think of The Passion of Joan of Arc going in? What did you expect? And how do you feel about this movie, etc.?
I think the book is better.
Yeah, you like those trial transcripts?
Yeah, I dig transcripts, man. Those OJ transcripts, beautiful. No, so yeah, this was the first time watch for me, but I've heard much ado about this movie. I think a little bit from you because I think at one point you were talking about how this is one of those top tier films. That's right, a film, not a movie. Films that everyone needs to watch, and I heard of it from you, I think, first, and then I started noticing it pop up on more things after you had told me about it. And I was like, ooh, yeah, I'd like to watch that. But I never really got around to it because silent films that are 90 years old don't usually pop up on my list that much.
No.
Into your regular rotation unless you have something going on that it's involved in. When I was trying to watch all those Universal monster movies and then I was watching all those silent ones, this could have fit in there. This is kind of a monster movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've heard a lot about it, but I've never actually seen it. And I went in knowing that you thought pretty highly of it. So I made sure that I wasn't in a bad mood, that I was in a movie watching mood. I was ready for this fucker. I wait until nightfall, threw that bad boy on, and
when it was really fucking hot.
Yeah, you stopped.
Obviously.
Yeah, it was very, very hot in my house, which I think adds to the tension of the movie because and one scene you see the sweatiest monk you've ever seen in your whole life. But yeah, so I went in and I watched it, and man, I think you were right. I think this is one of those best movies ever made kind of deal. And I don't think everybody will agree with that, and that's fine. Some people might not be down on this silent film stuff.
Wait till we get to the sorts of pieces of shit who hate this movie.
Who hate this? Yeah, well, so that's what I mean. I can see that there's probably a few people who don't like this, and I don't agree with them, but some people don't like silent movies. But my big takeaway, Jarrett, was now here's a Criterion film. This is when I first heard about the Criterion Collection, when when we talked about this on the first episode, this is the kind of thing that I thought about when I heard that there was this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for movies.
Right.
This was what I had in mind, was like movies that were not necessarily old or like silent films, but things that when you watch them, the whole time you're kind of dazzled and you're just like, fuck. You're like, they could make stuff like this? And then you realize, oh yeah, this movie's 90 fucking years old. And it looks amazing. Yeah. And the way they shot this movie is amazing. Mm-hmm. And the way they made everything about this is fucking amazing. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot to say, but that's my general response was, this is what I think Criterion is about.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of putting it. Absolutely, yeah. Because I like just going back through like kind of like all the movies we've watched of like all the Criterions up to this point, and like I think this is like the best movie in the entire like run like of everything that we've watched. I think it's like the best movie, like where I'd be like, what's the best movie in this stack? Passion at this point. Like
I agree.
I think I don't know, and I don't even know what separates it. If it's like because it's like so impressive that in 1928 Carl Theodore Dreyer directed this movie, and he like made this like completely like movie that's like unlike anything that was coming out, at least that I know of. And like I still want to watch because he actually has another movie that's earlier than this called Master of the House that I haven't watched yet. It came out on Blu-ray from Criterion, and it's like 4 years earlier. And I'd be curious to watch like that because like I'm pretty sure it's like not even on the same level as this, just because all the factors and like the story and whatnot are not all there probably the way it is here. But yeah, like he's like one of those guys that I've seen like about 4 or 5 of his movies, and like all of them are really good. I think this movie is like a true landmark, but even his other stuff is like super fascinating. They're just like these like low key character pieces. But I'll kind of talk about him like in terms of like film discussion maybe a little bit later. But yeah, no, like seriously, like this movie was made in the first couple decades that like the technology of film existed. So it took 20 years for someone to make a movie like this, and it seems like very few films are ever able to achieve this effect since then. And there's like been, like you said, 90 years to like get better at making movies like this, for instance, and it doesn't happen. So that's crazy.
Yeah, I can see like I think there's definite like aspects and visual like techniques and style that were in this film that a lot of today's popular directors like Game Changer Steven Spielberg, people like I feel like there's a lot of like techniques that the popular directors of today they use, and I don't know if this movie did it first. I'm sure there's other films that also have done it, but this is like some of the things. It's like this is the first instance I can of everything I've seen, and like I haven't seen that much stuff, especially old stuff, but this is the first instance of certain aspects like that. And I know you're gonna ask like which ones specifically, but there's a lot of filming techniques that I think are really, really well done in this. Like I love when it's kind of an out like. The area of focus is kind of not dead in the center of the screen. So one thing they do a lot is where the person's head is like down in the corner of the frame. Yep. And they do that a lot. And I love that. That's one of my favorite things is where they kind of shift the focus away from what the focal point is.
Right.
I fucking love that. I didn't expect to see stuff like that in this movie at all. There's that. There's the one really cool scene where they show the crowd and there's an overhead shot and it like the crowd is coming and it goes overhead and it almost like inverses it and it looks like the crowd is running like away from over top. It's hard to describe. It looks like it's backwards almost, and that looks really cool. And then I think the biggest thing with this one that I really dig is the intimate close-ups. Fuck.
What do
there's
you mean?
So many
are there close-ups in this movie?
Oh, you know how this movie is only close-ups?
Yeah.
But it really like when they close up on like Joan of Arc.
Yeah.
You see so much like pain in her face.
Oh my God, yeah.
And that's all you see. It's all you see. There's no like going away from it or anything like that. And it kind of hones in on it so well. So like stuff like that, I feel like the directors that are popular now, they do things like that. Or the one maybe not popular, but the directors I like, they do things like that. And so far, this is the oldest one I can trace back. So maybe someone did it before, but I don't know.
Yeah, I doubt like this. That's for I don't know. Like for absolutely people like the idea of close-ups and stuff like that were around, but like the idea of like, hey, we're going to stage this whole movie where it's like about people's faces, and there's like the way that this was too, because like so the movie is like all faces, and like none of those faces have makeup on them. Like they're just shot like, and that's like the thing where like usually you would put makeup on your actors so that their faces would show up on film better, I guess. But I guess like I was reading that they were using this like new type of film stock that would actually like highlight things properly, which is also why you get like those the incredible gradients and like the shadows and the blacks and the whites. Like it looks so striking throughout the whole movie. But yeah, no, it's a movie that's all faces, and that shouldn't work. Like if you think about movies, if a movie came along and did the same thing now, it's like this obvious tactic that brings attention to itself. Right. But here it seems like, well, it's essentially a talking head movie, and but you're also trying to build this environment of like, well, what were these characters that you don't see in the transcript? What were they doing? How were they interacting? And just like the ugliness of humanity and like of like authority and just like this like I don't know, just pettiness, and just like everything that you can imagine that was like wrong with the Catholic Church through this entire period of time, and just like how into themselves and this idea of laughing, and like they know the inevitability of what they're doing. They're just going through the motions to reach like a signature on a piece of paper. Essentially, they're just going along with it because they know they're going to win at the end of the day. They know how it's going to end before it begins, so they're kind of half amused by it, and I mean, obviously, that's the back and forth of it too. Is because she's no selling them. Because like in this particular interpretation of the Joan of Arc character, she's kind of like completely convinced of what she's doing. And I mean, there's like the whole thing of like the fear of being burnt alive is what makes her back down from it. But then she realizes that no, this is the wrong thing. I didn't mean that at all. And then she says, no, I recant. I'm going to burn alive because that's what I have to do. And it's just like such a fantastic piece of movie making. There's like there's no establishing shots. There's like the barest suggestions of the spaces that they're all in. Like there's just enough information, and they're not like, and it's not like period specific. It's not like you're watching this movie and you're like, oh yeah, look at the details. This is like the clothing. It's very authentic to the 14th century. But it's like no. It's like it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's kind of like enough to suggest it's old. And it could be like anywhere from like Dark Ages through like the Renaissance to whatever. It's like it's just enough to know it's like of a different era, but like the story itself and the feelings of it all are kind of more universal. But yeah, I mean, and there's like no sets to speak of, save the suggestion of where they are. There's like there's no bricks and mortars kind of thing. It doesn't look like you're in a castle. It doesn't feel like you're in a dungeon. It's just these white spaces, and like it's just the characters kind of occupying those spaces. Obviously, being a silent film, it's dialogue free, and I don't know. So you're just kind of focused on like the text and the faces and the acting and the emoting of everyone involved, which is superb. The lead, Falconetti, I don't like, this is her only movie. This is the only thing she ever did, which kind of adds to this otherworldliness of the performance, because it's like, well, she's like a famous person, and she's just this woman that embodies that character for that hour and a half this movie goes. I was reading about, there was Otto Preminger. He made his own Joan of Arc movie, and there was like the big like talent search they had of like who will play Joan of Arc, and they're like, and then it wound up being Jean Seberg, who's in Breathless, but it was like she'd wind up being in that. But yeah, there's like the whole thing, and it's like, oh, who's it going to be? Who is it? But it's like became like thing about like who's the babe? Who's the babe who gets to play Big Joan? Baby, it's like what?
They should. I think I'm tainted by popular culture now, but what's that chick from Game of Thrones, Brienne of Tarth? She could play Joan of Arc. She basically is, I guess.
Yeah, essentially she's that type.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except for all the blasphemy and getting killed when you're a 19-year-old.
Well, that show's not over yet, so we'll
That's
see.
right. You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah. So one of the fun facts of like the whole because I started like reading a little bit about the actual history of it, and this movie kind of like deviates from the actual historical information, which is fine because hey, when you're making like a basically perfect great piece of movie, it doesn't matter about the details. But like the reason she dressed as a man were for practical purposes, because when you're on the on the battlefield and you're trying to move around as a woman, it probably is best that no one knows that you're a woman.
Don't they address that in one of the like 90s movies about her? Isn't there?
Yeah, they sure do. Yeah, there's that aspect, but it's like, and like the whole thing, like the defense afterwards, like her like dressing as a man during like while she's imprisoned and being questioned.
Right.
The reason why she kept doing that wasn't because God was telling her, it's because it takes far too long and it's far too difficult for a man to take off these clothes to rape me. Yeah, that's like the thing. It's like those fastenings and stuff like that men wore during their armor. It's like, yeah, that was like a real pain in the ass. Whereas like, oh, here, honey, wear this dress. It just offers itself easy access.
Ugh, I don't like when you say that. That's real upsetting.
Yeah, well, so is probably being a woman in like the 14th century.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, also another crazy thing about this movie is it's at the end of the day, it's a courtroom drama, and when you say courtroom drama, you go zzz, snooze, no thanks, this is boring.
Wait a minute.
No, that's because
have you ever seen Jury Duty? Because that's a courtroom drama, and that is a fine piece of cinema.
There are plenty of really good courtroom dramas, but
right. Okay.
I don't know if very many of them are quite up to this level. There's like oh god, what's it called? Anatomy of a Murder, which it's like way too long. It's like 3 times as long as this movie is, and it never needs to be.
Yeah.
And it's got your good friend James Stewart. Jimmy Stewart.
That weirdo.
No.
Yeah, that guy's weird.
Yeah, so and then faces. The only sense of space that you get in this is like the cragginess and like texture of people's faces. Because boy, those shots of the bishops and priests and all those guys, all those dudes, and it's like that's all you get to look at. And it's just raw, and you just get to see right through their souls, man.
Yeah, it's funky, it's gnarly. That's actually the other really good filming, I don't know, technique that I really like. When they do like the pan shot, they do this a lot, where it's like the left to right, where they show like the whole kind of tribunal of dudes on the council.
Yeah.
Or whatever they are. They go left to right in like a slow, like steady manner. They show every single person. They do that a lot. I really love that. The one part that's really good is when there's that like telephone game style daisy chain where the guys are like saying something, they're passing along the message, and it just goes from every guy over and over again. That's wicked good. And then a couple scenes like that, like when the tormentors are putting like the crown on her, that one is shown so like, I wrote down elegant, I guess.
Yeah.
So they show it in a really unique way, where it like kind of goes between the 2 or 3 tormentors and then back to Joan.
Right. And
then between them and then the crown on her face, and she's just she's in such pain, man. And that is shown so so And then the other one I really liked was the signing scene when she signs that confession.
Yeah.
Before she redacts it or retracts it, when she's signing it, and then it kind of flashes to like the weapons of impalement, and like there's like maces and the noose, and then birds with like maggots or something. while she's signing it, and then when she actually does sign it, the way that it's taken away from her, I think is so cool. Where it's like one person grabs the pen from one direction and another person grabs the paper from another direction, and it's like in an instant they get taken away like that. Things like that, I think, is what makes this movie really fucking special. Like the way they show it like that, the way it's all kind of edited together, and that's what I mean. Like we've talked about it before. I don't know editing like that well. Like I would never be like an asshole who'd be like, oh, this movie has poor editing. But like there's cases where it's really bad that even people who don't know can pick up on it. Or like this one where it's really good and you're just like, man, this movie flows really well together.
Yeah.
And then
it creates these like what you just were talking about. I mean, it's a visual poetry.
Yeah. That's a nice way that doesn't sound like a dink to say it.
Yeah. I just think whenever I think of like poetry and talking about cinema, I just think of George Lucas.
Oh, it's like poetry, you know. They kind of rhyme.
Yeah. That's what I think of, and I'm like, yeah, just like what George Lucas is doing. That's what Passion of the Christ only attempted to do, and George delivered.
I don't know, man. Did you ever see that devil baby in Passion of the Christ?
With Mel, Big Mel.
Yeah.
What is he gonna do?
I thought that was your favorite. I thought you were talking about Passion of the Christ.
Oh no.
Are you talking about Passion of Joan of Arc?
Yes.
Okay.
Man, we've been talking about two different movies this whole time.
Oh no.
Anyway, speaking of Mel Gibson, bleeding, the bleeding out scene. That's some watching Tom Savini documentaries, watching some good old fashioned practical effects, and it's like, oh man, that bleeding out scene is like pretty fucking like grotesque.
But did they actually poke that woman?
I don't think so, but who knows? I mean, who goddamn.
Goddamn is right.
That's a lot of thick viscous blood. I don't think it would pour out that way, but it's very effective the way they did it.
You're not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor or a nurse or anyone.
You're not a doctor.
Thankfully.
Yeah. So it could have been. But anyways, yeah, that scene's gnarly as fuck. Because they stabbed the shit out of her leg and it's just like... Pss, pss, pss.
Oh, yeah.
That's the sound it makes in this silent film. Pss, 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 pss.
Nice. And then burning.
Oh man!
So the inevitability of the reason we're even like talking about this is someone had to be burned alive so this story could be told.
Wait a minute, is this based on a true story?
Why? Why? Yes, RJ.
My God,
that
was a bad thing they did to this poor woman.
That's right, just for being different.
Just for being different. Is that the Dawson Creek song?
Whatever that fucking Peter Gabriel song is.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know that song, so I'm going to respond as such. What else is to say about this movie? Oh, you know what? We had a question from a fan who I put on the letterbox that I had watched this with the musical track. And then they had asked if you should watch with the musical track. I've never seen it without. But in my opinion, I thought that the music was fucking awesome. I thought it was so good. I don't know if that's like what was originally
it's like
with this.
There's a crazy list on Wikipedia of like all the different like accompaniments that have gone with it. Like Nick Cave did a performance to it. There's actually a band called Joan of Arc that also did a score to it and stuff like that. There's like everybody I think is probably not everyone, but a lot of folk have added to it. And the one in this particular Guided by Light or whatever, the orchestral composition they put on with this, I think like on the Criterion DVD, it's so good. It's very like it. I've heard some like pretty shitty canned like music that they've thrown onto silent films, and it's been bad. The worst offense nowadays is that like some asshole with a like electronic keyboard will like compose some fake sounding digital orchestral music, and it's the worst. I would rather listen to it with nothing at all. Yeah, sometimes that's a real deal breaker. But I mean, as far as I know, the one that's available on Criterion is pretty great and doesn't take anything away to it. It helps move it probably helps things move along. I always find music helps move anything along. That's why people put music to things.
Yeah, I don't know what version I watched it with. It was an audio track, and it was mostly piano, but I think there was maybe some orchestra. I watched this legally, of course. So whatever was accompanied with that. I thought it was fucking great, man. Like, I thought it really helped. Like, it seemed like the track was made like specifically for the movie, which I know sounds dumb. It's like, well, of course it was. But I feel like some people could just like put tracks over things without actually doing it, but the music worked so well with what was actually happening on screen. I thought it was great. So I actually wrote my note, Jarrett, was hot fire. I wrote original music ? Hot fire.
Huh.
So I dug it, dude.
Well,
indeed.
That's fantastic.
Right.
Just outstanding. On the version that you watched legally, RJ, did it give you any of like the little tidbits of like this film's history and how it was lost for like 60 years?
Well, so the only downside to what I watched was everything was fine, and then at the end it had the text scroll at the end, but it didn't have subtitles.
Oh.
And at the start of the film, it did have subtitles to the text, like to the crawl. Mm-hmm. It did have subtitles to that, but at the end it didn't, and then it just ended. And I was like, oh, I guess it's like, well, I kind of know how that turned out, so I think I know what happened. But I missed that part.
Right. The movie was released back in October 25th, 1928. April 21st, 1928. And then it premiered in Paris. But then there was some editing to be done. And so stuff like that would be done without Dreyer's involvement, which of course would piss off anybody. Versions were destroyed. There was a fire, and people just said, "Oh, it's gone. The original cut is no more. That's the end of it."
Yeah.
I think like for a very long time there was like only an hour-long version that was available without subtitles. Right. So that was a pain in the ass. But then one day in 1981, an employee of a mental institution in Oslo found several film canisters in a janitor's closet that were being labeled The Passion of Joan of Arc. And they were able to restore those. And then I think they managed to find like the bits that they didn't have. So they have essentially what they assume is like the most complete version of the film that exists now, which is which we got to watch, which was nice.
That is nice.
Yeah. Hooray for film restoration. Like yeah. So yeah, it's like because there's like always the joke about like silent films being found in insane asylums and stuff like that. And like there's like Metropolis has like a crazy history of being found in like a copy will be found in like Brazil and like weird things will be locked up in like film archives from somewhere. And then you're like, oh, there it is. There it was staring us in the face all along.
Who would have known?
And the one scene in this movie that reminded me of you, made me think of you, was the one lady running around with her sheep as the riot breaks out. And I'm like, RJ will appreciate that lady's saving her sheep. Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
That was a cool move.
Yeah.
You should take care of those sheep because they can't take care of themselves. When they're in the prison of man.
Wake up, sheeple.
Wake up, sheeple. Yeah.
But I guess okay. I didn't get to go back on this. So that burning alive scene, damn, that like, just like I don't know how you could make a good convincing body to burn like that and like and hold on it. There's no like shortcuts, no like we'll cut to after the fact. It's like no, you get to see the process of the body burning. The person's dead, but you get to see that body fall apart, crumble into ash.
Do you think they got like an actual dead body and just roped it up and burnt it down?
Well, I mean, this was that actress's only movie.
Oh no. Well, but yeah, no, it does. It looks good. It's convincing, man.
Yeah. So the one thing I've talked about old Carl Theodore Dreyer. There'll be opportunity to talk about him again down the road. But he's fantastic. The first time I'd ever heard his name get bandied about was in relation to Paul Schrader, the scriptwriter and of like Taxi Driver and stuff like that, and director in his own right. He wrote a book like years ago about like transcendental film. And he was talking about three different directors in regards to this. It was Carl Theodor Dreyer, French director Robert Bresson, and the Japanese director Ozu. Yazuki Yozu, who will be watching a movie of his in a couple months here, which will be fun because I've never actually seen this one. But anyway, so these three directors he talks about is like them being kind of like the transcendental filmmakers. Like when we're talking about like composition and like how hands kind of enter the frame at the same time and pull away a pen and a piece of paper. These are the guys that were like minimalists, but they're really trying to like do more with like film as like a visual metaphor, I guess. And they're like, and these are the guys that he puts into that framework. And like I'd say that like these three guys are like some of the best directors in the Criterion Collection that I don't think they don't get their fair shake. I think Robert Bresson does a little bit better because his stuff is like very like existential, which I think appeals to people, and kind of dreary, like his movie like Pickpocket, A Man Escapes and stuff like that. And then Ozu's movies are like these like family dramas, but they're also like beautifully made, beautifully shot, and like they have such control over every move. And actually, fittingly, Robert Bresson also directed a Joan of Arc movie, The Trial of Joan of Arc, which I have set aside for myself, but I didn't want to watch it right after watching this because I feel like it would just like immediately impact me watching it. Right. That being said, I did watch another Joan of Arc movie.
Which one?
I watched The Messenger, the story of Joan of Arc from 1999, directed by Luc Valerian Besson.
Oh, no. Hey, his movie failed at the box office last week.
Yeah, people didn't go see it. And word of mouth is negative, though I had one person at the comic store today excitedly tell me how awesome it was. But this same guy also thinks Batman vs. Superman is like one of the best movies ever made.
Wait, I wasn't in the store today.
You were not. And you haven't seen Valerian.
Okay. Well, so, he's got some good taste.
So The Messenger, RJ, is 2 hours and 37 minutes long. And it kind of tells like the whole story of Joan of Arc. It shows her a little girl, and it shows her visions and survive. And basically, it's one of those like post Braveheart period pieces that came out in the 90s that really want to demonize the English because they're just like marauding rapists that will fuck a corpse because it's convenient. They're just monsters. And then of course, so the little girl Joan of Arc survives a raid on her village by the English and grows up to be Mila Jovovich, Luc Besson's wife at the time. And she goes and raises banners and runs around. The movie kind of drives home more the aspect for me, I guess, of her being a religious fanatic. And so I guess history is written by the winners. And so initially, Joan of Arc was viewed as a bad chick and like and saying all sorts of bad things. But then like a couple hundred years later, the Catholic Church was like, "Oh no, she was great."
Are you saying she was a nasty woman?
Nasty woman.
Or a bad hombre?
Bad hombre. Yeah, I'm saying all those things. Anyway, so Messenger, it tells more of the complete package. John Malkovich puts in an appearance as the king, the Dompier or whatever. Yeah, this movie's just, I don't know, it's super generic and pretty forgettable and skippable. Like it's just, I don't know, it's everything you'd expect from a 90s movie. Actually, the first bit I was like kind of like, yeah, I kind of like these types of movies. I remember when movies like this were made all the time. Things like The Patriot.
That movie rules.
Man in the Iron Mask, that sort of stuff. They don't make them like they used to, RJ. But this movie, I think in Roger Ebert's review of it, he refers to it as gassy because there's just like lots of like, you don't need any of this. Like the most interesting part of her story is like the trial. Like that is kind of like the most fascinating aspect. to it, because that's why the stories that focus on that are the ones that we talk about to this day. And this movie, I don't know, it almost smash cuts to like her burning alive. It's kind of like more hilarious than anything. This movie and then Dustin Hoffman's in this thing, and like I thought he's like an actual character, but no, he plays her conscience that's in her head. He's definitely the best part of the story, and it kind of brings in more of the idea that like she's having doubts about her sanity, which is like also kind of like very late 90s.
Yeah, those hysterical women, Jarrett. Yeah, you gotta watch out for them.
So I will not recommend anyone bother watching this movie. I ran out of time to watch the equally long Joan of Arc, starring Lily Sobieski, because like I've heard that movie's like just even like worse, and probably it's less money, and like she doesn't even like cut her hair. I don't think she's just like a long-haired lass. Just like she's got that Jennifer Lawrence look to her. That I don't get it. I don't know.
That's a hot take, Jer.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but anyway, so transcendental filmmaking, it's pretty great. RJ, you gotta, if you like this, you got more Dreyer coming up, so that's cool.
Ooh, yeah, I dig that. I'm into that.
But hey, RJ, there are some pieces of shit. Oh,
hold up.
He just raised his
finger
at me.
I'm not done with this movie yet.
Okay.
I'm not done yet.
Okay.
I just have one more thing to say.
Okay.
I am so glad that this came after Life of Brian. I think that if this was before, I would have loved it, and then I would have watched Life of Brian, and I would have gotten really mad, and I would have really shit on Life of Brian. Why? I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's because they're both like religious movies, and I didn't love Life of Brian. But when I was watching this, I was like, I'm really glad this was after. I don't know.
Did this speak to your Catholic upbringing, RJ?
It did.
Yeah.
Burn the witch, man.
Yeah.
Tom York said it first.
Yeah.
No. I don't know what it was. I thought I should say that because I think the placement of this movie is good. I like that it came after Life of Brian.
That's good.
Because if any nerd watches it in chronological order like us, I don't know. I think it's better after. So that's just me. And then the last thing I was going to say to you, Jarrett, is look into her. You know how there's so many like close-ups in this movie of Joan of Arc?
Yeah.
When you look into her eyes, what do you see?
A cult of personality.
No, I was going to say, I think this movie is the inspiration to one of your favorite horror movies ever. The classic smash hit Martyrs.
Well, it's the whole ballpark. It's the whole ball game.
Like, I know that's what that movie gets after, but the close-ups in this movie, when you look at the actress who plays Joan of Arc, her eyes are just dreamy, man. They're starry.
Yeah.
Something going on in there. So anyways, that's all I want to say. But yeah, you were talking about some pieces of shit who don't like this movie.
Yeah, like Nathan, who didn't give this movie a star rating. So it's kind of breaking the rules of like lowest rated movies, because there's people who don't rate, they just make comments. But I came across this one, and then I was like, oh, fuck you, Nathan. Fuck you.
Yeah.
And he just watched this back in June, this guy.
Oh, man.
I'm not sure this even counts as watching it, because I only made it 15 minutes. I could not be more bored. A bunch of people in a shared delusion arguing whether the room they both believe in that isn't there is black or white. Boring, boring, boring. I don't think there's anything here, and I don't think that there's anything in the real life story. One side of an unjust war captured an enemy combatant and executed her. All I can say is, K.
What a piece of shit. His problems are more deep-rooted in his own personal, his own personal things.
So there was like another comment I came across that was also no stars, but it was just like, I'm an atheist. I think that was actually a half-star review. I'm an atheist.
Shut up.
You know what?
Shut up.
Also, hand up here, an atheist. It has nothing to do with enjoying this movie or like finding something like merits or of interest in this movie. Has nothing. They're dum-dums.
That has nothing to do with it. And this atheist as he claims, he's no better than the people who are pushing shit on other people.
That's right.
You nerd.
You nerd.
You nerd. Fuck that guy.
So here's a review from just a person who watches movies.
Oh, come on.
Half star. So, instead of making a film about Joan of Arc's life, they decided to make a film about her trial. A film that is a bunch of people sitting around and talking in a silent movie. Terrible idea. I was quite pleased with the silent rendition of Ben-Hur, but this was horrific. There is nothing worse than an hour and a half of ultra close-ups on a person's face who looks permanently drugged out of her mind. 50% of the film, her eyes are bulged out, 40% of the film she looks baked, and 10% she's just randomly crying. Heads up, bugging your eyes out and staring into space is not good acting. I was beyond bored by the 20-minute mark that I just wanted them to get on with the burning. This film cannot make you feel sympathy or sadness because there is nothing there, just stupid drugged-out stares. I concur with Robert Bresson's claim that film is nothing but grotesque buffooneries. He's goddamn right. I can't repeat enough how much I hated that drugged-out face. It doesn't help that the medieval soldiers are all dressed like World War I infantry carrying spears. It just serves to make the film more silly. And know what was really fucking dumb? The ending. For absolutely no fucking reason, the moment Joan dies, the World War I soldiers grab a bunch of maces and start beating the crowd to death and throwing spears at them. There was no riot or anything, just sudden killing because fuck it.
What the fuck? Does this person know that this really happened? Do they know that?
Oh, wait, just one more. This film steals the honored place of the worst movie I've ever seen from 2001: A Space Odyssey. A difficult feat, but achieved.
Oh, come on.
Fuck this film, and fuck the stupid reviewers who lie to us and give it 5 stars. Do not waste your time. All caps.
I have so much to say about this, Jarrett. Okay, one, I don't think this person even knows that this actually happened, or that this movie's 90 years old. They're talking about fucking Ben-Hur. It's like, yeah, that movie came way later. No,
there was a silent Ben-Hur. That's the
okay.
There was a before Charlton Heston. There was, but nonetheless.
And then also she's talking about drugged out eyes. Come on, man. It's like if she actually if he actually whoever this person is that what I meant when she was, if you look at Joan of Arc, the actress who plays it, I never got that she was drugged out. Like, she seems obviously distressed, but I feel like that's what she probably was fucking going through. Yeah, she's distressed because she's gonna get fucking burnt alive. Like, you know what I mean, dude? And it's like when she said 10%, or when the person said 10% crying unnecessarily, or crying for no reason. It's like, well, she's crying because everyone's yelling at her and telling her she's stupid. I would cry too.
See, I would even go for me, her whole performance is this understanding of this character is she legitimately, obviously, believes that she is in communication with God. Right. God is speaking to her and has directed her in her life, and she's kind of in this weird drugged out state of dealing with a higher consciousness than her own. Mm-hmm. And she's rendering this in this real way of she's spaced out because she probably hears these voices, and then at times she's abandoned and she doesn't know how to make sense of it, and she's been arguing with people for a very long time about this stuff that she completely believes. So one thing, I guess this is going back to Luc Besson's The Messenger, but there's more of a reading that she's a schizophrenic. That's kind of the thing that realistically, you would apply to this story. But because we're talking about a movie, which could also, it works in a state of fiction, and then you can apply it to your own life as much as you want it to. This idea that dealing with the spiritual truths of the world and making the world a better place and doing what's right, and this particular character is completely convinced that she's being told what to do, and it's all these things are oh, those are all good things. There's the one line about in the Luc Besson movie where it's she's I just want to do good things, and her priest is oh, you should follow through with that. That voice that you're hearing sounds like a pretty good voice to have. It's not the voice that says kill, kill, kill. Like,
yeah.
So I don't know. It's like I don't know. There's like that fine line of mental illness, spiritual awakening. So I mean, like, the performance is amazing. And I don't know, this like comment borders on the line of troll for me. Like it's right up there with that amazing the other ranking one is that Seven Samurai review that I read.
Oh yeah,
that classic.
Yeah. So can I tell you? I agree with everything you said. Can I tell you about this guy or this
person?
This person who is just a person who watches movies from Cambodia, allegedly. Here's their bio, Jarrett.
Well, you looked them up.
I am so mad at this person, whoever they are. Here's their bio. Films are meant to be entertaining. That is their primary purpose. A film that is not entertaining misses the point of why film exists. If your film appeals... If your film appeals exclusive to filmmakers and film critics, it is not a quote unquote good film. This, more than anything else, is why I mostly detest indie and art house films. I reject the term cinephile. I watch hundreds of films and enjoy or dislike many, but I will not be assimilated into the pretentious world of wannabe critics who try to shame everyone into conforming viewpoints. Film tastes are subjective, and nobody has objectively good or bad tastes. If you can't fathom why someone may dislike a film you like or like a film you dislike, you have a narcissism issue and should attempt to pull your head out of your ass. Now, furthermore, Jarrett,
This is the person who just said, "And fuck the stupid reviewers who lie to us and give us 5 stars. Do not waste your time."
Yeah, exactly. And do you know what this person's favorite films are?
I looked it up, but tell me again.
The Matrix.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
Yeah.
The Last of the Mohicans, which I find is oddly out of place in this list.
A little bit.
And then the cherry on the top, Star Wars, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. This person who just watches movies is also watched Dunkirk this week, gave it 3 stars, and watched Valerian, the aforementioned Luc Besson movie, and gave it 3.5 stars.
I was going to say, I bet you 3.5. They give it the edge. They give it the edge.
I'm all over this fucking person. I'm on to you, man. They only gave The Rock 3 stars, which is fucking atrocious. That movie's but they agree with you. They gave Baby Driver 2.5.
Oh no.
Okay, I'm done with this person.
Okay.
But, you know what? This person sucks, and I hate them.
One more. Soupy Doopy.
Oh no.
0.5 star. I'm sorry. I know this is considered a masterpiece by a lot of people, but I just can't find anything to praise here. I tried. Really, I did. I recognize its innovation at the time, but geez, come on, people. It's question and answer film done mostly in extreme close-up. Sometimes innovation isn't the right path. Sometimes there is a reason things haven't been done a certain way before. It was so god-awfully boring good gravy. Given the choice to rewatch this or watch paint dry, I would pay money to watch the paint dry. The acting was ridiculous, especially from the lead actress. Her wide-open eyes was laugh-inducing. I can't keep a straight face and call this good cinema. I don't mean to sound disrespectful to Joan because it's an inspiring story. It's just this film about her life is so painfully dull. She deserves better. I know they didn't have a whole lot to work with back then, but my God, mix it up a bit. I could have made this film in my basement with all my uncles dressed in robes. If you enjoy this movie, good for you. That's great. But I can't do it. Never, ever again.
I think that this person, Jarrett, is an anti-vaxxer. Because whoever this person is talking about how innovation is bad, and maybe you should just leave things the way they are.
Mm-hmm. Good gravy.
Yeah, so maybe you don't want to give your kid penicillin.
No.
Try ginger. That might work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that person sucks. All these people suck.
All these people, they're the worst.
They all suck, and you're no better. Neither am I.
That's right.
Everybody sucks, and life is horrible.
But this movie is pretty good.
This movie is pretty good. We can agree on that at least.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
Outstanding.
Anyways.
Hey, we were trying to do a shorter episode.
Well, hey, at least this episode, the bulk of it is actually talking about the movie.
That's
So
hey.
no one can complain about that. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe they will. They always do.
Somebody will complain.
All right.
Yeah.
That's it. This movie is ace. You should watch it if you haven't figured that out by now.
Mm-hmm.
After the break, we're not going to rape anybody.
Wait, are you talking for both of us?